Right, so a mutiny in the ranks of the IDF. This is a subject I've touched on previously, where members of the IDF have refused to return to their posts, sick of there being no end in sight to the fighting in Gaza and further afield, as and when Benjamin Netanyahu has directed it. Armed forces, regardless of what you think of them, and I'm sure your opinion is very low, being abused, however, by their own leader, who is making more and more war that they have to fight, for no better reason than keeping his lousy backside firmly in power. This has led to dramatic shortages in personnel, the forced drafting of Charedi Jews in Israel who traditionally are exempted from the national service as scholars of the Torah has been one such attempt to fill places. But matters have continued to evolve, and just how much worse matters have become is something we need to talk about, because with Netanyahu's rhetoric and warmongering on one hand, he's losing more and more soldiers to actually do it on the other. And in light of the seeming hopelessness so many of us feel watching the atrocities Israel are committing, and the failure of our Western leaders to do something about that and take a stand against genocide, Israel may soon be incapable of fighting on as many fronts as it is. Combined refusal to serve by existing soldiers being exacerbated by young conscientious objectors, with the death toll of IDF soldiers and one of the leading causes of that, along with rebellion in the ranks at service level, the IDF is crashing up all over the place. But you wouldn't know it in our media, would you?
I'm coming here today to refuse to enlist in the IDF as an act of solidarity and love to the Palestinian people, and to say that war has no winners, that violence only leads to more violence, that everyone is being hurt by this war and by the occupation, and that the only way that we can ever solve this is by a political solution and fair peace to everyone. It's also a message to the people of Gaza that there are people fighting for them and that we are trying to make peace, some of us, and it's also a message to the people in Israel to show them that refusing is possible, and to raise that message and to raise that voice as loudly as they can. It's definitely uncommon and very frowned upon in Israel in general, and especially now in times of war, which is why it's more important for me to do it, and why I think it's the most important right now to raise that voice.
Right, so the ranks of the Israeli Defence Forces are in a bit of a bad way right now, and that is one reason there that you've just witnessed: conscientious objection, the refusal to serve in the IDF as is required of every citizen of Israel, with a few exceptions. It's been going on for quite a while. That clip was taken from a video posted by Israeli outlet 972 magazine's photojournalist Oren Ziv last February. Such objection has been a long-running theme in Israel. It doesn't get seen nearly enough, never appears in the media. Not every Israeli is bent on the destruction of Gaza, just unfortunately the ones in power are. That young woman, Sophia Orr, got 20 days in prison for her objection. But as she said in that clip, it is possible to object, and frankly, if the choice between carrying out genocidal orders or getting locked up, I'm sure most of us would, without hesitation, choose the latter. But this is only one aspect of the problems besetting Benjamin Netanyahu and mutiny in the Israeli ranks, because the citizenry objecting to enlisting is one thing, but when those who have already enlisted are objecting too, that becomes a whole other matter. I spoke previously about IDF soldiers refusing to return to their posts after going on leave, and the fact Israel were actually worsening matters on that score by recruiting mercenaries to try and fill an immediate shortfall in the IDF ranks of around 7,000 places near the end of last year, paying some more than double what the average IDF soldier gets paid in order to get them to do it, to really rub salt in the wounds of the IDF as well. Now, this shortfall is coming around not necessarily in light of the losses Israel is experiencing, though these have been heavy, but also as a result of a great many IDF soldiers refusing to return to their posts after periods of leave, despondent and disillusioned that matters are still dragging on, that there is no end in sight to it, that they are just going over all the same ground over and over, and in no small part is that due to both their failure to actually eliminate the likes of Hamas and Hezbollah, who have both seemingly been able to not only survive, but recover their numbers and continue fighting in spite of everything Israel has thrown at them and the people of Gaza and Lebanon. Benjamin Netanyahu, in order to keep himself in power, cannot afford to let this war end. We all know this by now. Running out of enough soldiers, though, enough lives to put in front of him to shield him from losing his job, is taking that decision out of his hands to some extent, though. How much longer can he genuinely keep this up? If numbers continue to dwindle, it really doesn't matter how much military aid the pro-Zionist world gives him. And it looks like Donald Trump isn't going to hesitate to keep all of that going in the same way Joe Biden has. May even expedite even further to get even more in. If there is nobody there to use it, however, what good is it? And given the numbers Israel has now published in regards to at least some of their losses, this is an issue that is worsening for them. According to figures from the IDF themselves, a tally of losses since October 7, 2023 includes 891 soldiers having been killed, 329 were killed during the raids on October 7th themselves, apparently, 5,569 soldiers have been injured, and there have been 27 suicides amongst the ranks of the IDF. Those numbers appear to my mind to have been played down, and part of my thinking there is those IDF stats, which have been quoted both by the Israeli government critical news outlet Haaretz and by Middle East Eye as amounting to 17 in 2023 and rising to 21 in 2024. That adds up to 38 in my mind, which is the highest they've been since 2011, apparently, those 2024 figures. An excerpt from Middle East Eye's coverage on that matter reads, "Thousands of Israeli soldiers have ceased serving in combat roles due to mental distress since the 7th of October 2023, the Israeli army reported on Thursday. The army also revealed a rise in suicides amongst soldiers from 17 in 2023 to 21 in 2024, the highest annual total since 2011. Of the 21 soldiers who took their own lives in 2024, 12 were reservists, 7 were on compulsory duty, and 2 were career soldiers. According to the data, suicide is the second leading cause of death in the Israeli army, following operational duty and surpassing illnesses and accidents. Meanwhile, more than 82,000 Israelis left the country in 2024 as the government pressed ahead with its brutal war on Gaza, official data revealed on Tuesday, according to Israeli outlet Ynet News. Although the Bureau did not state specific reasons for the exodus, previous reports have linked the departures to Israel's ongoing wars in Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, and now Yemen. Israelis leaving not just the IDF, but the country itself, some taking their own lives in the process, now the second leading cause of death amongst IDF soldiers, Israeli army soldiers. And frankly, I'm not expecting much sympathy from those listening to this on that, given what they may have been asked to do, what they've been prepared to do. But for as many IDF soldiers as we've seen grinning and gurning on social media about the depravity they've been conducting and seemingly reveling in it, there are those behind the scenes still who have suffered for it. And in that light, regardless of how ambivalent you might feel towards that notion, you can appreciate why so many refuse to return to their posts or indeed refuse to serve full stop. There are even those who have given evidence and been prepared to press charges over what they've been asked to do. And one such example, published about a week ago now, concerning the actions and orders of Brigadier General Yehuda Vash, the commander of the IDF 252nd Division, who has been accused by his own men of endangering their lives in order to seize more territory in Gaza, and having handed his brother, Colonel Golan Vash, carte blanche to go rogue and set about destroying as many Gazan homes as he possibly could. Vash wanted to ethnically cleanse 250,000 Gazans south of the Netzarim corridor, the clearing of northern Gaza, but he'd set himself a bit of a personal target on this. The artificial divide, as that corridor is, that Israel have built between northern Gaza and central Gaza. And he complained last month that they hadn't already done that they hadn't already displaced that many people, and said there was no such thing as an innocent Gazan, and that this wasn't just his opinion, but it actually became doctrine under his command. Vash was driven by a desire to achieve the goals he'd set himself quickly, and did so at the risk of the lives of the soldiers under his command, pushing into areas that hadn't been cleared of Hamas fighters, and didn't take the necessary precautions, and as a result of that got 8 of his own soldiers killed for it over 2 incidents, one involving clashes with Palestinian fighters, the other as a result of a convoy apparently driving over a bomb because the area had not been cleared. The most moral army in the world, where for some commanders it seems Israeli lives are actually as cheap as Palestinian ones. Vash was also one of the perpetrators blocking any aid getting into northern Gaza. One of his officers, who spoke to Haaretz, said Vash had ordered that not one truck should enter. An inquiry is now apparently taking place into this guy. So, suicide, dissent, disillusionment, conscientious objection, refusal to return to the ranks, and mutiny against rogue commanders within it. The IDF, regardless of the war crimes they are carrying out, in many cases are not doing so with any joy or willingness and zeal that too many in the Zionist media are pushing propaganda over. The truth appears to be far from it, And it's a situation that Benjamin Netanyahu actually has no control over, because it is his vision for total victory, his determination for conquest, his wider war, and the greater Israel doctrine that seems to be being followed more closely than ever, that is driving this dissent and flagging morale in his own army. At some point, it's going to doom him, because he's going to stretch matters too far eventually with no solution in sight, save for foreign intervention potentially, and the ramifications that in itself carries with it on a more global scale. Thus far, though, it might not be slowing him down in his madness. In fact, matters have become so alarming for Egypt now that they've begun beefing up their defences on their side of the border with Gaza, in the Sinai Desert, for fear Israel may be coming for them next. Action which Israel is taking is an act of war, because such defences might harm their troops if and when they do actually attack Egypt. Well, who do they think they are? Well, we know the answer to that one, don't we? It seems only Israel has the right to defend itself, after all. Get all the details on that story of Israel's potential next target. Certainly the Egyptians think they're it in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. Please do also hit the like, share and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so to help support the channel, keep the news flowing and ensure you don't miss out on new daily content, which I know you absolutely hate. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.